Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so Janine,
Maybe they aren't back yet.
yeah. Should I move on to the next one?
Yeah, maybe come back to that one.
Okay, then Sanaya Irani, you can now ask your question.
I want to say hi to Alex from Canada. Hi, Alex. Okay, Sayana.
Sanaya, hi.
Hi.
Okay, so my question is about death. We were speaking about it the other day, and you know, somebody do understand that death is just a change in the whole process, and we are accepting of it as to when it comes, and it's fine. But that being said, what about people who do experience a brutal death, for example, something terrible? I mean, having fear at that moment, or fearing, for your life at that moment, to just think of the people, what they 9/11, or somebody being brutally murdered at that point, being like, oh, okay, I'm just going to let this all be and happen the way it is. I think that's, I don't know, that's kind of impossible to be okay with,
Yes, it is. What my understanding is that even if it's a very brutal death, there's still a process that the mind goes through in as the consciousness is leaving the body. So of course it affects, I think, yeah, I'm not sure. It definitely affects the mind at the moment of death. But shortly after, when the body is no longer having pain,
right.
then the mind it becomes freer to I think deal with the process more easily, especially if the mind already has been peaceful. So yes, it's going to affect it. How it's going to affect it, I'm not sure.
So you're saying, like, in the moment, of course, it's hard to control, like being human beings, you're going to sense fear and all of that. But I think at some subconscious level, if that is something you've practiced and been aware of, I think then your soul just knows. I guess, is that?
Yeah, your mind can go back to its usual way of functioning very quickly.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I think.
I have another question. Could I ask, please?
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
We have lots of time.
Okay. But this is, okay. So I kind of believe in past lives. I believe that the life that we have is what we've chosen, be it our physical bodies, to be it what we go through mentally and physically through our entire life. Am I wrong with that belief somewhere? That we've chosen this life, we've chosen the good, the bad, the hardships, the great stuff coming our way for a reason?
No. We can use whatever circumstances happen to us in a positive way, but we don't have that kind of control to choose the experiences that we have. From a Buddhist point of view, the karmas that ripen for us are not under our control, and that's the problem. But once we have those situations, once those karmas ripen, then we can choose what to do with them, how to learn from them, how to move forward.
Right. So it's not like you're so, because this is an alternate belief altogether. So it's not like your soul chooses the life or chooses its path in its coming life.
No.
Okay.
No. We can create the conditions as much as possible to have positive experiences that we can learn from, or even, you know, if there are certain lessons we have to learn, but we can't guarantee that no, we don't choose.
Okay. Okay. Because sometimes I just wonder, there are such amazing people and great people.
Yeah, maybe we
who,
should go on to the next person,
yeah,
if that's okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm muting Shmarupo. You can now ask your question.
Hello.
Hi.
So my question is, hi. My question is about analytical meditation.
I lost you. He's muted.
Yep, I'm unmuting again.
Okay.
Okay. So my question is about analytical meditation.
Yes.
So if one wants to conduct analytical meditation on topic, to perform guided meditation for him, like we do here. So what are the steps? How should one conduct analytical meditation on his own? What are the steps that one should engage in, and how should he do it?
Okay, so the way you can follow the way that Felipe leads you, in the sense that you start by calming yourself down and going into doing a short time of shamatha first. And then you have to, before you go into the meditation, you have to have chosen a topic, what it is you're going to analyze. And so there are outlines that you can use that outline the specific reasonings related to a specific topic, like the death meditation that we talked about, that death is definite, that time of death is uncertain, that the what you can that only spiritual practice can help you at the time of death. So if you have an outline of points related to the topic that either you've memorized or you have in front of you and you can look at, then you follow those reasonings step by step in your meditation. And while you're reading those, so you say, you know, you read the sentence, death is definite, and then you bring from your own experience examples of people who have died, who are just like you. And so you also bring into the analytic meditation your own thoughts and ideas and questions and debates about the topic. So you follow an outline, but then you also integrate it with your own contemplation. And then at the end of it, if you come to a some kind of a conclusion, like for example with the death meditation, you come to this conclusion that it is really important that I use my life before my death comes, because I don't know when it's going to come. And you have kind of almost a, you know, a physical experience of, you know, that this is, or an aha moment, they sometimes say. You get some insight into what it is that you're studying. Then you want to hold that with your calm abiding so that it has more of a deeper effect. Okay, so that's how you do analytic meditation. You start off calming, and then you follow an outline, and you question, you debate, you bring in examples, experiences, and then when you come to a conclusion, you hold that conclusion. He's muted.
Okay, so thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay, good. Welcome.
We move on to Prabhu. I'm muting you, so you can ask a question now.
Pranam. I just want to ask how one can, purify one's karma. Can one's karma be purified? Can one's, good karmas negate the effects of bad karma? As well as, I also want to ask that I have been abused for a particular, for very much gradually for a long period of time in the past, and that effect is still on my personality. I mean, how can I change that? So
Okay.
that's my question.
So we can do good karma to stop negative seeds from ripening
Okay.
through this process of purification. So if your positive karma is an antidote, you have the intention of doing the good act in order to stop the bad act from ripening, then it can negate it. Okay. Now, the results of abuse, it depends what those results are. Like, what kind of personality characteristics, or what kinds of habits, or what kinds of thoughts are you having as a result of someone harming you in the past?
Mm-hmm. Like I have been abused by a person of opposite gender, and that whenever I see someone like that, I mean some personality like that, I certainly become very weak, or I feel very, I mean, I feel very weak, something like that. I mean, so I
Okay.
get the same feeling. I get the same feeling.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. So, so one thing you can do is that when you get that feeling again in the presence of someone who is like the person who has harmed you,
Yeah.
then you can be mindful, be aware of what is happening. Okay. So what are the thoughts? What are the feelings? And that's your first step, is to become aware of that weakness. Where do I feel it? Where, is it in my arms? Is it in my neck? What am I thinking? What are my beliefs about myself when I'm meeting this kind of person? Okay, so first we have to have an awareness of what's going on. And then we can start to check if those thoughts are really true. Like if I meet someone who's mean or angry, and I feel like I'm powerless in that situation, and my only recourse is to run away or fight or something, then I can test that. Is that really true in this situation? Do I really have to, do I really believe that I am powerless in this situation? Because I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm an adult now. This person is not the same one who harmed me. So those beliefs that those, recordings that we have, that we developed in response to someone else who harmed us, we can start to challenge those and say, is this really true now for me? But first we have to be present with them. First we have to be aware of them. And then we can start to challenge them. And we can start to see that, in fact, this is not the same situation. This is not the same person. And I am not the same person as I was when that other person hurt me. Okay?
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Of
Thanks.
course.
Okay, now I move on to Remy.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm very, very happy to finally, well, whatever. Like, thank you very much for your teachings.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm a big fan. I have questions about Vajrasattva practice, purification practice.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure to understand it very well as the way it works, and I have some concerns about the concept of purification as well. So first off, as I understand it, Vajrasattva is the representation of my own Buddha nature.
Yes.
And so I am basically trying to purify my negative karma myself with myself.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's a paradox in some ways, because there is an external Vajrasattva that exists, which is the purity of all the Buddha's minds. And there is also the purity of our own mind, which is the same as the purity of all the Buddha's minds. Okay, so you are, the difficulty is that there is not, when you say I'm purifying myself with myself, that idea of what is that self. Usually when we say the word self, we mean something that is separate from all other beings, and we don't exist that way. So then that statement doesn't make so much sense. We have and so we have this interaction with the Buddhas. We have an interdependent nature with the Buddhas as well. And when we connect our own Buddha nature with the Buddha nature of other deities, then that purification becomes easier, becomes more powerful. So that's going on. But also what is going on that is even more powerful is the visualization that you are doing when you are purifying. So visualizing as if there is an external power that is, you know, shining this white light down on you and removing all your difficulties. That also is the psychological process that helps the mind, yes, to purify itself, to let go of some of those negative seeds, to create this positive environment.
Stop holding on the things that we are carrying. That's what you mean.
Yes, it helps us to let go, definitely. It helps change to happen. Yeah, and it starts, yeah, just to break up that idea of, you know, I'm a bad person, and yeah, I did this horrible thing. Yeah, that's part of it too. It starts to release some of that, to see that we have this ability. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've got this question also about labeling any experience as negative, as me trying to purify things as this is my approach of it that makes it negative. My way to react to it that make it negative. Not the thing itself.
Yeah, negative karma is only labeled negative because it causes suffering.
Yep. All right. So what I should try to work on is my understanding of emptiness, and not getting rid of things as if they would exist negatively on themselves, no?
Yes, now that's a little bit more advanced. When you start going into emptiness, you do start to not label things as negative or positive on that ultimate level, okay? But you still have the relative level, which is where karma exists. So bringing in this this view of emptiness, that things are not inherently negative or inherently positive, helps to balance this view that we have that somehow relative reality is concretely, absolutely existent, can't be changed, you know, without flexibility. But at the same time, it exists, right? It still causes suffering.
If I don't react to it properly.
Right, definitely. So when we see it as concretely, absolutely suffering, then we do react to it as if it can't be changed. Yeah. Yeah, but it's this balance, isn't it? You can't just go like, oh, it doesn't exist, it doesn't matter, because it's all empty, right? You can't really go that completely that way. That's nihilism. And you can't go to that, it can't be changed, it's always absolute either. So you have to find this balance between those two.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
keep working with it. Sorry, I couldn't get it more clear.
Yeah, no, okay. I keep on going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, sure. You're welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, now we move on to Brahman. I'm unmuting you so you can ask your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's an honor to have these difficult times and to sit us so close. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I have two questions. And one is, what will Buddhism say about the Machiavello about the end justify the means? Like if the end is justified by the means, that the means justify the end, better say.
Yeah, do the
Like
means justify the ends? Is that your question?
just to be
Okay.
particular, this is the question. And the other question is, I feel like there's a limit in compassion because in the process, the way I understand it, maybe it's wrong, but in the process of like developing more compassion, I have to create some empathy. And by doing this, I put myself in the shoes of the other person to see their difficulties and all this. But all this process, like for at least for me, it creates a lot of suffering. Like because this true empathy really sometimes I feel worse than before. So then I get to question if compassion is the right tool to end suffering, and if particularly while you don't dilute the I identity, like if you still have your I identity, maybe that's the restriction for you to get full on compassion, because while you still identify yourself with this and the body, and you get this empathy and you personalize the, the situation of the other person, you like sometimes I think I feel worse. You see, like
Mm-hmm.
I feel nice, I feel great to wanting to help and to want to hug the other person and whatever, but at the end I also feel like I'm feeling wrong, I'm feeling bad in my heart, instead of like giving me something more nicer, a nicer feeling. So these are the two questions in that sense. I
Okay.
don't know if I was clear.
I'll try and see. It sounded pretty good,
Okay.
I thought. So do the
Okay.
means justify the ends usually means, can I do a negative action because in the future it's going to produce a positive result? So in the sense of, it's similar, I think, in some ways to, Robin Hood, right? The question about Robin Hood. Is it okay to steal so that I can provide, for the poor, kind of thing? From a karmic point of view, no. Okay, that stealing in order to be generous, it doesn't make any sense. They're opposite, right? You're doing a non-virtuous thing expecting to create virtue. Okay, on a very simple level. Now, when we add in the idea of the intention, that my intention when I'm doing this act is to create a positive outcome, then we will have a mixed result. We will have a positive result because our intention is positive, but we will have a negative result because we have done a negative action. Okay, so there's an example of this. There's a story that they tell of when Buddha was in one of his previous lives, he was a bodhisattva, and there was a ship of bodhisattvas. They were all merchants, and there were a bunch of them, like 500 merchants on this ship. And he was a high-level bodhisattva, and he could read people's minds. And so he read the mind of one of the beings, oh, I think it was a pirate actually, that was going to show up and kill everybody on the ship. And so what he decided, since he could see that the plan for this pirate was that they were going to kill all these bodhisattvas, and that was a really horrible thing for that pirate to do. It would like send him into the hell realms for a long time. So the Buddha chose to take on the negative karma of killing, because in order to save all the bodhisattvas, as well as to save the pirate who was going to kill all those bodhisattvas. So, but because he killed, he had created the karma to be killed. I think they talked about him going to one of the hell realms. But because it was such a positive intention, he only suffered for a very short time. It was like very quickly he was freed from that because his intention was so positive. Okay, so when you're talking about means justifying the ends, you have to take into consideration the motivation, okay, the intention. Okay, but it's always going to be mixed. You still aren't going to get away. You know, the Buddha still experienced the karma of having killed. Okay. So then the other question about compassion and empathy may be related to this in some ways. Sometimes when we become overwhelmed or upset with the suffering of others when we're practicing compassion, it's because we are not seeing the impermanence of it, the constantly changing nature of the suffering. And we need that view in order to have the hopefulness that compassion brings, that this person can have their suffering removed. Their suffering will end. And that through having compassion for them, through having this sense of empathy, we also bring in this sense of hope and this sense that their suffering doesn't stay. So maybe we'll have to, see, you'll have to check this out. But when you are feeling compassion for others, maybe you are more stuck in the fact that it's happening now and therefore it's going to happen forever, instead of being more focused on the idea that yes, it's difficult for them, and there's the possibility of them being freed from it. Okay, because I don't think that then you should avoid compassion because you have a little bit of a sense of their suffering, because it actually creates more happiness for yourself and others when you acknowledge that suffering exists and that it can be removed, because the fact is that it's there. But what do you emphasize? What do you focus on when you're feeling that compassion? Do you get stuck in the overwhelm, or do you see the hopefulness of it being removed?
I don't know. I think sometimes, I surely it's helping because thinking on the permanence of the suffering of the other one can let me release it, but it's just the momentary pain, the momentary pain of while I'm hugging or feeling, this momentary pain that goes, and maybe afterwards I feel good because I see her smiling again or whatever. So afterwards I start feeling the good karma from it. But in that first moment, I feel that suffering. But yeah, I think it helps a lot. It helps a lot what you said. And just if I could go back to just one little thing, it will be very great. Okay, thank you. You were talking about the motivation, which I consider is very, very important. But sometimes I have these two ideas that are mixing together because in one side, I believe that motivation is the most important thing of an action, or like maybe all the process of existing or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
in another side, I feel like the motivation is always very good in the eyes of the subject that is acting.
Mm-hmm.
So the subject that is acting is always thinking that he is doing the best, that he is doing this for a good reason, and maybe he's very deluded because of his ignorance or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
his intention when the moment he's acting, like if I'm going to act now, my intention is going to be the best, maybe to satisfy my hunger, and maybe I'm being selfish. So that's wrong because I'm being too selfish. But
Mm-hmm.
in the first moment, I think intention is really not giving me anything to work on because uh, intention is always good for me. To my eyes, as the subject that is acting, my intention is always the best for me and sometimes for others if I can expand it more. But
Mm-hmm.
really, the intention point, it's interesting, but it doesn't give me anything to work on. I think maybe for me the focus maybe it's more on the delusions or particularly on trying to measure the effects of my actions.
Okay. So, well,
To
the
believe
when
that
we're
you
when
can call.
sorry, when we're
No, good,
talking
good.
about
Thank you.
intention, yeah, when we're talking about
Mhm.
intention, you said it. Sometimes it's for yourself, and sometimes you can widen it for others, and that's where you work.
Okay.
That's where you focus, because the intention
So,
for,
okay.
yeah, expanding the attention for others is where where you can, yeah, that's the biggest effect that we can have, because we can't
Okay.
necessarily control what
Okay.
our the results of our actions are going to be.
It's difficult.
It is, yes.
Okay. 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 Yeah,
All right.
no, it's very, very nice. Thank you very much. You give me a very good kiss. Take care a lot and please keep doing this once in a year at least. It's so nice to see
Okay.
you. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay,
Okay,
next
now
question.
I will unmute Jasmine Kramer. You're not unmuted.
Jasmine? Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Um, Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions and to learn about Buddhism. For me, I often have very self-destructive thoughts or negative thoughts. So I'm always not good enough or not patient enough. And I also have a lot of doubts. And I really want to change that. And now I don't know what the right way is to change that patterns. Is it meditation about loving kindness, or is it more the way of purification and set the goal that I'm not disappointed by myself, or that I'm more patient the next time? So how will I start this process?
So there's an amazing researcher that has written a book about self-compassion. So in self-compassion, she talks about, and this has actually been shown in research on developing compassion, that we have to start with ourselves. So just like I've said before, becoming aware of the self-talk that we use, what are the statements that I'm saying to myself? And it sounds like you're already starting to be aware of that, okay? So she talks about 3 different aspects of self-compassion. And one is this self-kindness. So how do we talk to ourselves? What kinds of things do we say to ourselves? Versus what kind of language do we use that judges ourselves? So starting to practice saying nice things to yourself. And it sounds really funny, but this actually came out of like the work, the inner child work of like the 80s or something, 70s or 80s. But this idea that we can reparent ourselves, that we can say kind things to ourselves and reassure ourselves and soothe ourselves and compliment ourselves and, be kind, accept ourselves where we're at. And we can consciously generate those kinds of thoughts. And that helps us then when we don't live up to our standards and our expectations. It helps us to be compassionate about not hitting those goals or not being the person that we believe we should be. Okay. And actually, self-compassion can be even more powerful than this idea of high self-esteem. Okay. Sometimes high self-esteem sets us up for comparisons of like our ideals or someone who is better than us in some way. Self-compassion only looks at where I am, accepts where I am, and also encourages me to be better. But it doesn't judge me because I'm not already someplace that I, think I should be. The second one that it talks about is this idea of common humanity. The fact that everybody makes mistakes, everybody goes through difficult times, and we each are no different from everyone else. And so we can be compassionate for ourselves instead of isolating and feeling like we're the worst person in the whole world because we did this thing. Because you'll find that any mistake that you made or any difficult situation you've been through, there is someone else, other people, and probably many other people who have also gone through the same thing. So you aren't alone in having that experience of not being perfect or not, meeting the goals that you really want to meet. And so it's okay. You can be like everybody else, right? That's okay. And then the last one is this mindfulness. This where we start to accept our situation, be present with our situation instead of over identifying with it and making ourselves, that cognitive fusion that I talked about, where our mistakes or our negative emotions or our negative experiences, we start to fuse with our identity. So we start to think, because I have a negative experience, therefore I am a bad person. I am an unworthy person. When in fact, we are pure and clear in our nature, and we have all these different experiences. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative, but that is not defining who we are. There's no absolute self that exists that can be judged as bad or good. We are many things. We've created lots of positive things in our lives. We've made lots of mistakes in our lives. So to then, make this one specific characteristic or this one specific experience into the whole of who we are it's not a reflection of reality. It's an exaggeration of the negativity. So starting to get in touch with the sense of, I'm also a really kind person. I'm also very successful in this area. I'm also, have had this positive. I've had this negative. I also have had this positive. So I'm all of these things. So to then only focus on these one or two specific things doesn't make any sense. It's not who I really am. Okay, so that's this mindfulness versus over identification. And the name of the author is Kristen Neff, N-E-F-F. And the name of the book is Self-Compassion.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Sure,
Thanks.
welcome.
Okay, so we move on to the next one. I'm going to mute Raz.
Yes. Okay, hi again.
Hi.
I have 3 questions. I want to say that I'm a beginner, okay, in all this. It's a really question that I didn't understand last week, some things.
Okay.
So in the beginning, with the suffering, with the change that we talked about. So I find it really difficult for me to accept that for me, that if I'm choosing something to change in my life, I suffer from it. I cannot understand it. I understand that something changed that I didn't choose or I didn't decide, and something happened. Okay, I can suffer from it. But if I choose to do a change in my life,
Okay.
and how come, why it's happening that I'm suffering so much from it, you know? So it's like my shoe is small and I want to buy a new shoe, right? And sometimes when we buy the new shoe and we put it, it hurts, right? Because it didn't fit our. But we get used to it and we are happy that we have the new shoe and that we don't need the old shoe that didn't fit anymore, and that's it. And I don't understand this term of suffering with the change.
Okay.
I feel
Okay.
it, but I want to understand it.
Okay. So the suffering of change doesn't refer to suffering that we choose. It refers to suffering that comes out of our control.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So, and it's often related to the expectation that something that made me happy is going to continue to make me happy. And then it changes and it no longer makes me happy. So that's what we mean by the suffering of change. Okay. It's not necessarily changes that we've chosen. It's changes that happen to us out of our control. And that's the suffering of change.
But out of our control, and also because of our false belief that something is, if something is happy now, it will continue to be happy forever. It's also
yes. Yes.
All right. So can I continue?
I actually, can I give other people a chance?
Of course.
Because we have a bunch of people who want to ask questions. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm muting Vivant. Vivant.
Hello.
I would like to know if in Buddhism we believe in destiny, because I make a bit of confusion when I think about the past life, when we come back in this present life. So we have the result of our past karma, but also when we now in this present life, every action that we do will have karma, an action, a result in this life, but the next life too. So I'm wondering if it's linked to destiny, and if in Buddhism we believe in destiny.
Okay. So in Buddhism, it's not, completely determinism or destiny and out of our control, but it's not also completely free will. Okay. So we don't have the choice to do anything, because we do have past karmas that result in our situation right now. Okay. Like the fact that I created the causes to be born a human being means that I have a human body. I've created the causes to have a certain level, let's say, of intelligence, to know certain things because I've studied certain things. Okay. But at that moment that these things come together, all of those past karmas are, I'm experiencing their results right now. There are lots of possibilities of results that are happening right now. And right at that moment, in that present moment, that is, of course, barely there, I do have intention going forward. Okay. So it's like, all these conditions that exist for me right now. And now I have a choice of where I'm going to go next. Okay. So where I'm going to go next is not determined completely by my karma. I have free will in that moment, but where I go next is determined partially by all these past situations that I have. Like I mentioned before, I don't have complete free will to be able to fly because I'm not a bird, but I do have a choice whether I'm going to walk or run you know, in this moment, right? Because I have legs. So the fact that I have legs is determined, but how I use those legs going forward, I have a choice. Okay? So it's a combination. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, for example, when you meet someone in your life, someone who's going to help you, a teacher, a husband, or is it like your destiny, or it's just like a chance?
So, you know, we do have certain powerful like connections that we have made with people in the past. So we may bring certain people into our lives because we have had karmic connections to them in the past. But whether we continue that relationship now in the future is, of course, our choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is karma, you know, that we have certain people come into our lives, but then moving forward, we can decide what we're going to do with that.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, now I'm muting Christy.
Thank you for taking.
You mentioned earlier today that sometimes we can cause harm when we have good intentions, but we don't have wisdom in our actions. And I think about one example of that. I work with young people traveling often to India or Nepal from the US, and they're very keen, to go to orphanages or to support orphanages. But we now know that a lot of these orphanages are taking children from their houses and, are not actually creating good situation for those kids. And I think of, my very well-intentioned American teenagers who are trying to help, but who don't have awareness of these issues and all the things that we're really ignorant of. And so I'm just curious if you can speak a bit more about how we can cultivate wisdom in a broad sense so that we're not unintentionally creating harm.
Yeah. Well, that, developing wisdom is, just like educating ourselves and doing research and trying to get our own afflictive emotions out of the way. Sometimes we do things because out of pride or because it's going to make us feel good. And we, pride or feel good in the sense of my feelings of feeling good for doing this positive act are more important than if you really benefit or not. So getting some clarity in our motivations can go a long way into making good decisions about our lives. So why are you really giving to this? Do you really want to benefit them, or is this just the easy way for you to feel good about yourself, kind of thing? So of course, research as much as possible, but also and I feel like the more that we can be clear that we're actually, wanting the other person to receive the most positive situation for themselves, the more we can be clear with that, the more that we are going to make wise decisions about it. The more that we're going to be able to judge whether this person is actually going to benefit from it or not. When we start overlaying it with a sense of I'm so important, I'm going to give to this, I think that gets in our way more. Yeah. And for your teenagers, of course, it's hard because they're still learning how to take someone else's point of view. But that would be powerful, as if you could put themselves in those children's place, and what would really make those children happy? Would it be, giving them candy, or would it be, giving them an education? So helping your teenagers to start to see, and then they can evaluate, are, you know, are these orphanages really benefiting these children? Yeah. Yeah,
tricky.
I know. It's not easy.
I feel like oftentimes in order to learn, we have to make that mistake first, but those mistakes come with a lot of collateral damage, and that doesn't feel acceptable. And
yeah, we do. I mean, sometimes we do, but if you know, because we don't always listen to our elders, right? And sometimes, and they're going to make mistakes anyway. You know, I don't think that we should encourage them. If we can stop them from making mistakes, we should do that. But if we can't, then great, they get to learn from it. Yeah.
You want to do one more?
Yes.
Okay, I'm unmuting Doron Lev. You can now ask your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope it wouldn't be a stupid question. I'll try.
Don't worry.
I really liked the question and the answer about Robin Hood, and it gave me subject about equanimity. How do I think all my life I was choosing, like Robin Hood chose, like you said, he will steal, but with an intention. So he will take on himself the to be steal from. So about equanimity, I think all my life I'm choosing, like let's say about love and relationships, to be really, really, really happy when something is like crazy happy, and then I am suffering the other part of it, of being really, really, really sad, like you said at the beginning of today's. I'm thinking about maybe there is like something about this choosing. I'm choosing to do it aware, being really aware of the benefits of being about taking the equanimity, of passing the crazy good and the crazy bad. I was just wondering if there's something to be said about this choosing.
So if I understood you, it sounds like you are choosing when things are going really well to be very, very excited. And when things are going really bad, to be really, you know, down and negative and disappointed. Is that what you're saying?
I think that I'm choosing the upper side, and and as a result I'm experience the other side, not choosing only the upper side. But
okay.
Sorry, but the choosing is like I'm aware that when I'm choosing the upper side, I'm getting the lower side too.
Right. Because if we go, balance is about seeing both sides of any situation. So instead of exaggerating the positives and only seeing the positives, having a balanced view is seeing the negative side. So if it's a relationship, like you fall in love and they're the most amazing person that ever existed and they're your soulmate and you can't live without them, that's not being balanced in the sense of they're also a human being who has their problems, and eventually you're going to get to know some of their more annoying characteristics. And so And it's very hard to do when we fall in love, to start to see the person as a human being, you know, as fallible, right? As that they're going to make mistakes. But you can do it. I mean, you can just remind yourself that this person, that you have been happy even before you met this person. You have had happiness in your life without them. And if they go out of your life, you will have happiness again. So recognizing that, then you can have more of a balanced view toward them, of like, I recognize and I enjoy you and I think you're amazing right now, but I also know that you're not always going to be that way, because you're a human being just like me. And I have really good qualities, and I also have negative qualities. You know, like sometimes I get mad, or sometimes whatever, I chew with my mouth open or something. And you're going to have those things too. And actually, longer lasting love, I think, in relationships comes when we can accept both sides of people, when we can see their really positive, amazing sides, and we can accept their sides that are not so amazing and still love them anyway. Okay? All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so let's dedicate, you know, that by this practice of examining the Buddhist teachings, that we can be of benefit to others, that others can benefit from the wisdom that we have developed here tonight. And thank you, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Venerable Drolma. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.